Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's so nice to have a large group today, and I am really curious now about the cultural background of us. So can we take just a moment to scan this QR code and share your cultural background? Curious about the results now. Are you done with it? Wow. You see the result? Oh, you cannot see the result here. Now it's showing here. No, it does not show. But here I can see that we have multiple cultures like Swedish culture, Portuguese, Indian, European Portuguese. Yeah, that's very culturally diverse, really culturally diverse. And I am from China. My cultural background is Chinese. So let's start our journey from here. Yeah, I know, but yeah, that works. Thank you. And just to show you this calligraphy here, do you know what is this character? It's Fu in Chinese. Yeah, you can try to pronounce it. It's very easy, right? Fu, yeah. And that means good fortune. So just now you pronounced it. That means it will bring good fortune for you for the new year, the year 2025. And let's review a bit what Colin have told us. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's say it together. 过年好. Yes. Thank you. And for Chinese people, the Spring Festival or the Chinese New Year is a big festival for family reunion. So people will travel to where their big family is, the hometown, wherever they were working or living. That's why we see the world's largest periodic human migration. The railway stations, the airports are usually packed with people. And I used to be one of them. I live and work here in Guangzhou, in South, or we call it Canton. And my family live in Huangshi, a city next to Wuhan. So I usually need to travel about 1,000 kilometers to go back home. And during that time, it's very tiring, but it's exciting also for the big festival. It's a pity that these 2 years I didn't go back. I celebrate the New Year here. It's kind of boring, but this year is different. I'm so happy that I can celebrate the third year of the Chinese New Year with a big group, all of you. And since I moved to Sweden, almost everyone I met asked me this question: what brought you to Sweden? Does it sound familiar to some of you also? Yeah, I see some people nodding there. But what is my answer? It's this: a ship. Anyone know the ship? Yeah. You must know this one. This is just a model. Yeah. That's a model in Canton Museum, Guangdong Museum. And this is the real one. But it's a replica of the 18th century merchant ship. You know that, right? Yeah. The ship actually traveled from Gothenburg to Canton in the 18th century 3 times. And it brought back tea, porcelain, and silk. Then the commodities were sold to other European countries, which made Sweden very rich. But in 1745, the ship sank into the ocean, about 900 meters away from the port. It's such a shame. Well, we can't deny that this ship is really important in history in its role as a bridge between China and Sweden, or the East and the West. So when I said that the ship brought me here, I was not kidding. It was the story of the ship that inspired me to explore Swedish culture and Gothenburg here. So here I am. And then there's usually a follow-up question. Is it different from your expectations? So this picture kind of formed my initial expectations of Sweden. It's cold, it's dark, and people are so far away from each other. So cold here. But I should say the generalizations or expectations, most of the time they are good, in a way that it makes the unknown more predictable and make us more prepared for the unknown. But it's not the whole picture, right? That we can't deny that in intercultural communication, especially when we are faced with interaction with a culture that we have no clue of, it's important to learn, to get some clue first from the intercultural communication theories. That's what I got from Hofstede's cultural dimension theory. And I expected Sweden to be lower power distance or less hierarchical and more individualistic. And this society emphasized more on personal well-being or the equality instead of achievements and success. While in terms of uncertainty avoidance, the two cultures are quite similar. And compared to the Swedish culture, Chinese society is more long-term oriented and more restrained. So all these are the theories that I got. Some of them were true, but some of them were challenged in reality. Yeah. So I keep reminding myself it's important to be open to learn from reality, from the real interactions of culture. And then I get to learn about the Jantelagen, Lagon, and Knita Neven in Bixvika. Sorry, forgive my pronunciation. I'm still struggling with Swedish.
We're laughing at ourselves more.
Okay, so these concepts and the values, the cultural values behind these concepts are quite similar to the Chinese cultural concepts or values of humbleness, moderation, and harmony. This is what I got after I came here, after I live and contact with Swedish culture and more Swedes. So this reminds me that it's important to learn the theories, but more importantly, we need to learn from encounters or intercultural interactions. That's why in most intercultural communication training or competence training methods, we combine the two core components, encounters or interactions and reflections. The UNESCO have initiated this story circle method in intercultural training, in which people can share their intercultural experience in smaller groups and then reflect together. And there is another popular method which encourages people to record, reflect, and reassess the critical incidents. Here, critical incidents in this context means the intercultural interactions, which are valuable for learning. And I'm sure that Stefan is much more experienced in this area, and he has a lot of interesting stories to share with us. So let's invite Stefan to the stage.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Because it's a short on the web page.
So, some 20 years ago, I'm not giving away my age here, I was working at SKF. Is there anyone from there? Great. Ball bearing company, global one, based here in Gothenburg, with operations all over the world. I think they exist now in 150 different countries. One of my first tasks there was to coordinate the production of a branded polo shirt. Simple white t-shirt with a blue logo on the side. And naturally, being Swedish, I tried to be efficient and sent out instructions to the different countries to produce it themselves locally, instead of sending it out from here. After a while, I started getting designs back from Mexico and Guatemala and Germany and so forth. And they were pretty much looking the same, white, blue shirt. But then I got a design back from China. And it was a white polo shirt with the blue SKF logo on it and a big blue flower. This is actually an AI-produced image, but it was pretty similar to this one. And naturally, I was quite shocked. I got my Chinese colleague on the phone and I asked, "What the F is this?" And she basically says, "Well, I know it's not the same, but it just looked so empty." Now, this was 20 years ago, and since I've done many mistakes in working with other cultures. Like I said, I was at SKF for some 10 years, working with Americans and French and Portuguese and Chinese people. And for the last 10 years following that, I've been working for the Chinese automotive company Geely, which is mostly known for being the owners of all the cars here in Gothenburg. I'm the Chief Communications Officer of Geely Holding in Europe. That's what I'm spending my days with. Since we only have a few minutes, I'm not going to give you all the theories and all the examples I've done, but just to give you a few nuggets of my insights on working and communication in intercultural environments. So going back to the polo shirt, I've learned that Swedes like minimalism. We are quite proud of the minimalistic design language and so forth, which can be seen in the typical IKEA Billy bookshelf. Chinese people, on the other hand, or Asian cultures in general, tend to like complexity, which can be seen in a traditional Chinese bookshelf, which is rich, intricate, colorful, full of, we can see that somebody has done a lot of work on this, in contrast to the simple Billy bookshelf. Now, if you look at my company, which is a large automotive group, we have many different car brands. Are you familiar with Polestar? Yeah. Anyone from Polestar here? No, good. It's a brand that was designed and born here in Gothenburg, and it's very Scandinavian in its approach, but minimalism. Do you think it's been successful in China? No, not at all. Most Chinese people tend to go into these stores and think that they are in a funeral home. It's so sterile and boring. It's been very successful in the West, which we are glad for. But then we also have another car brand, also born here in Gothenburg. It's not Volvo. It's called Lynk & Co.
Yep.
Are you familiar with them? Yeah. In their stores, it looks like this. And for me as a Swede, I get a migraine when I get in there. I drive a Polestar. But it's been very successful in China. They love this. The colors, the vibrance, the craziness. You can really see how much time and energy is spent on this. So that's a key learning to see the differences here. Then, a little bit like you were alluding to with the ship Gothenburg, the key thing is to understand histories of other cultures if you want to get some context and understanding of them and why they are like they are. When I started working at Geely, we had this taxi service. Are you familiar with this one, Sasa? I'm sorry for the pronunciation, I never get that right.
That's right.
It's a taxi service, a little bit like a Chinese Uber. You use an app and you call for a driver and you get the car coming and so forth. And I think I spent like 1 or 2 years without understanding the meaning of that name. It was just Cao Cao.
说曹操，曹操。
Yeah, exactly. You know him. 2 years later, I was reading The Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It's like a Chinese Game of Thrones, but it's real and it's in place like 2,000 years ago. And in the story, there's a battle where a famous general shows up to save the day at the last minute. And this general was General Cao Cao. And this incident gave birth to the expression in Chinese, mention Xiao Xiao and he shall appear, which is the same as the speak of the devil and he shall appear, or in Swedish as we say, tala om trollen så står han i fasten. Of course, this is a brilliant name for a taxi service, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't know the story, the name had no meaning, no context. So history is really important to understand cultures, and specifically in China, where I think most Chinese people have a lot better grasp of their long history and what happened and the culture than we have in Sweden. Now then, you can use Hofstede's cultural dimensions, very good, but it's also a little theoretical. I simplified it and come up with a theory of my own, which is basically that you can learn a lot about the nation's culture by looking at their leaders and the way they are photographed and how they portray themselves. And it will also tell you something about what sort of leadership styles people prefer and so forth. I have a few examples and you can make your own conclusions. I think you're familiar with this guy. What
No.
you can probably think of the leadership that he has. And his friend. I don't know what it's with dictators and horses, but there's something. The macho guys. But of course, we also have great leaders in China. Sweden then. You want to be, as we say, folklig or popular down with the kids and be modest. And this is a slightly older presentation, so I had to actually go and look for the current Prime Minister of Sweden, what he's doing. And to my surprise, it's only and this is even, I think in Sweden we have this term A-lager. Let's not go into that. But you as foreigners or newly coming to Sweden, you can probably see this is quite significant for the Swedish leadership style. And also for the Scandinavian, because funny enough, earlier this week, the Danish Prime Minister invited the leaders of the Scandinavian countries to a dinner in her home. And she published the photo of their dinner, and these are like the governmental leaders of Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. In her home. Can you imagine Xi Jinping or Donald Trump doing this? Or Macron?
Yeah.
No.
I don't think so. No. Well, actually, Donald Trump managed with the McDonald's thing in the airplane. I think it's pretty funny as well. But this is very, very telling for Scandinavian culture.
Yeah.
So I'm going to conclude quite fast. We can talk about learning history and learning the theories and everything, but I want to give you just one simple golden rule, and it's basically that everything starts with you. You are the one who eats the strange stuff. You are the one who have the weird habits and different opinions about what it's to be on time and these values. Because no matter where you come from, you are never going to be the norm. everybody else is quite different. I think you're familiar with this world value map. And particularly important for us Swedes to be aware of that we are definitely not lagom.
Yes.
We're definitely at the extreme end of the scale. So basically, in order for us to be able to work with others, you have to start with yourself. Thank you.